welcome back. This week we are going to be learning all about pH and ocean acidification. So last week we did the Enviroscape demonstration, which was a model of a watershed, and we polluted the watershed, and then we watched where the runoff went and the pollution in the runoff, and it all went to the big body of water. And we learned in our watershed lesson week that all water usually leads to the ocean. So today we're going to be talking about what's going on in the ocean with pollution. So, carbon dioxide is a common pollutant that's found in our air, and we have been creating a lot more carbon dioxide since the Industrial Revolution. And about 30% of the excess carbon dioxide in the atmosphere gets absorbed into the ocean. That might sound like a good thing because that means we have less carbon dioxide in our atmosphere, but it's not a good thing to have too much carbon dioxide inside of our ocean. So I'm going to show you guys a chemical equation for what's happening, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. So here we have carbon dioxide, and carbon dioxide is mixing with water, and this is H2O is water. So we have CO2, carbon dioxide, mixing with water, and it creates this compound here, and that compound is carbonic acid. And carbonic acid is going to kick out two hydrogens, and in return, it's first going to make bicarbonate, and then it's going to kick out another hydrogen, and that's going to make carbonate. And so the more hydrogens you have floating around, the more acidic the water is, or the lower the pH is. So now you might be wondering what pH is. So pH is just a measure of how acidic or basic something is. So the pH scale goes from 0 to 14. The lower end of the scale, so something that's very acidic, is going to have the pH of like 1. So like your stomach acid is super acidic, so it's going to have a really low pH. Something that's super basic or alkaline is going to have a pH of 14. So think of things like cleaning solutions, or like when you get an upset stomach because you have too much stomach acid, you take a Tums or like Pepto-Bismol, and that's more alkaline, so it's going to try to make less acid in your stomach. So it's all about the scale. So when I think of something that's acidic, I think of things that are sour. So things like lemons are really sour, citrus fruits are really sour. They're also acidic. And if I think of something that's really basic, think of things like milk is really basic, bleach is basic, or more things. So like soap, if you're going to wash your hands, those are basic solutions. So now you might be wondering what too much hydrogen ions or more acidic ocean water is going to do to ocean life. So we talked a lot about salmon, and salmon go to the ocean, and they go to the ocean to feed and eat as much as they can. When they're in the ocean, they're eating larval stage shrimp and crab and all those little like small things that they can get their mouths on. And all those things they eat have shells. And shellfish, or animals that have shells like coral, clams, lobsters, all those are the ones that are really affected by this ocean acidification, or the ocean becoming more acidic. So think about so like our teeth, right? Our teeth are hard. We're told that we need to brush our teeth after we drink sodas, or after we eat a lot of candy, because our teeth will start to decay. And sodas are really acidic, so that acid is starting to make our teeth less strong, so we need to keep them clean. So in the same sense, all those extra hydrogen molecules that are in the ocean, so to build your shells nice and strong, or to build our bones really strong, we have calcium that makes our bones strong. It's pretty similar to shellfish, but they have calcium carbonate that makes their bones and shells really strong, not their bones, their shells. And so if we have too much hydrogen molecules in the water, it's going to be harder for those shellfish to hold on and take calcium carbonate, because there's not going to be as much calcium carbonate available in the ocean. So their shells are going to be weak and soft, and they're going to be a lot smaller of animals. So think about if you were a baby and you didn't get enough calcium, your bones are going to be weaker or more brittle and not grow as strong, and you won't be as big because we don't have the building blocks to have a really hard, healthy skeleton. So the same thing's going to happen with our shellfish. So now if we go back to our salmon, knowing that they eat those shellfish like crabs and shrimp, and they're in their larval stage, if you have 10 salmon and they have to eat 100 shrimp a day in order to be healthy and happy, now what happens if those shrimp are smaller, or there's not as many? There's not going to be enough to feed those 5 salmon that are swimming around, right? So that means they're going to have to work harder to find their resources, like food, and they're not going to have enough resources to go around, so some of them might not get as much food. And also the ocean acidification is messing with animals on a different scale too. So salmon, they're finding that the ocean pH increasing or decreasing, so it's becoming more acidic, is actually having it's hurting the salmon's ability to smell. and they smell their way through the watershed to get their way home. They smell in order to detect predators. They use their sense of smell for so many things. So it's a really big deal that it's kind of altering their ability to detect predators and to find food, and potentially affect their ability to find their way back to their spawning stream. So when we say that the ocean is acidic, it's not on the acid side of the pH scale. So the pH of the ocean is about 8.1. Before the Industrial Revolution, it was 8.2. And the difference between 8.1 and 8.2 does not sound a lot, but it's on a logarithmic scale. So that change is actually really, really significant, and it's way more acidic. So we've talked about ocean acidification a lot now, and I think it's time that we do some fun experiments to kind of visualize what ocean acidification can do. Okay, so first we're going to learn about the pH scale. And here I have a head, well, half a head, of red cabbage. And red cabbage is actually a pH indicator. So what you can do, and you need a grown-up's help and permission before doing this, but you can take red cabbage and you can cut it up into little pieces and take a pot of water on the stove and put water inside the pot and then your red cabbage and let it get warm and boil for a few minutes until the water turns purple. And that purple water will change colors with different acidities. So I already have done this, and I have my red cabbage indicator here, which is just red cabbage and water. And so for this experiment, we are going to need 3 clear plastic cups. We're going to need 1 of just a small regular paper Dixie cup. You're going to need something to cover the cups with. I'm just going to use a sandwich bag, but you could use a petri dish or a plate or anything to stop air from escaping from it. You're also going to need baking soda. You're going to need regular household vinegar. And also you're going to need a straw. And you're going to need teaspoon measuring spoons. So what you're going to do first is you're going to get a blank piece of paper and you're going to label it so you don't mix anything up as your experiment goes. So we are going to label 1 control, 1 experiment, and then the other one we're going to label straw. So now I'll turn it towards you guys so you can see it. And so I'm going to place my controls and experiments never change, so we're not going to touch this cup. This is the cup that we're going to compare the watercolor to. Then we're going to have our experimental cup and then a straw cup. I don't know if I said it before, but you guys also need a straw. So what you're going to do is you are going to take your little Dixie cup, and you're also going to need tape, and you are going to measure 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, and you're going to put it inside the little Dixie cup. So when you're measuring, I'm going to move my experimental cup for 1 second. When you're measuring 1/4 teaspoon, you don't want a heaping quarter. You want a level, flat 1/4 teaspoon. You're going to place it inside of your Dixie cup. Then you're going to take tape, and you're going to tape it inside your experiment cup. Make sure that the top of the cup is lower than the top of the little cup is lower than the top of the big cup, but make sure that the bottom of the cup does not touch the water on the bottom. And you're just going to tape it into place. Now, if it's easier to measure out before, because this kind of happens fast, you can take another Dixie cup to measure out the amount of vinegar you need, and you are going to put 2 tablespoons of vinegar inside of this cup. So now I have my 2 tablespoons of vinegar inside this cup. I'm going to get my plastic bag ready. It helps sometimes if you have 2 people to do this. A plastic bag and then also a rubber band. And now this is when you kind of got to act quick. So you're going to take the vinegar, pour it into the baking soda cup, and make sure you get this on and trap the air inside, because when vinegar mixes with when vinegar mixes with baking soda, you get carbon dioxide. And that carbon dioxide is going to be absorbed by the water. So we're going to quickly pour it in. We're going to put the bag over top. accident. Trying it again. Okay, we're going to try that again. I remeasured my 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, and now I'm going to only use 1 teaspoon of vinegar instead of 2. And remember, we're going to quickly, because we saw before that it does bubble over sometimes. So what we're going to do is we're going to quickly dump the vinegar into the cup with the baking soda, put our bag on, and then rubber band it shut. We got it that time. So now what we're going to do is we're going to watch the color change, and it helps if you have a white background on the back. So this process might take a little bit of time, so just be patient and let the reaction happen. Sometimes it might take up to 5 minutes, so you guys can just set these aside, but make sure that none of the vinegar and baking soda mixture gets into the cabbage water, otherwise you won't have an accurate experiment. This might take a little bit, so we're just going to let this cup keep going, and then we're going to come back to it. But now what I want you guys to do is take the cup that says straw, and what we're going to do is, so when we breathe out of our mouths, we breathe out carbon dioxide as well. So if we take a straw and put it directly inside of the cup with a straw and blow into it, we're going to be directly putting carbon dioxide inside of the cup. So when you're blowing the straw into the cup of cabbage water, make sure you don't make yourself dizzy and blow too much that you get lightheaded. You can always take a break or take turns, but using your own straw in order to get the carbon dioxide from your mouth to go inside of the indicator water. So about 5 minutes time has passed, and I apologize that it's so dark on the screen. Maybe if I show you guys an overhead view, you guys can see the difference. But I used this one and I blew in the straw, and it turned a lighter kind of almost pink but still purple compared to our control. You can hopefully see a difference. In our experiment one with the ocean or carbon dioxide in the air, it is a little bit lighter than the control as well, indicating that the carbon dioxide has changed the pH of the water. So I think to show you guys a little bit better example, we're going to take some household liquids and experiment with the pH of them by adding some indicator of cabbage water to them and seeing what color they turn. Okay, so I have my household products with me. Make sure you always label your cups too, and again, make sure you have your adult's permission and help. So I have club soda, which is just like carbonated water. I have a mixture of baking soda and water. This is my control cup. Remember, the control isn't going to change, so we're not going to add anything to it. It's going to be our comparison. I have vinegar, lemon juice, and soapy water. So we'll start with something that we know is acidic. So we know that lemon juice is acidic. So I'm going to add some of the red cabbage indicator, and we're going to see what color the lemon juice changes. So the lemon juice is now, I'll get another white piece of paper so you guys can see the background better, is this really great, bright pink, kind of reddish orange color. So now we'll add some to the club soda. Remember that there is CO2, which makes soda carbonated. So we see that that turned a really light purple, which is similar to the color that the cup turned when we blew in it with a straw in the experiment cup that we did. Now, do you think baking soda is going to be acidic or basic? So what color do you think baking soda is going to turn? Baking soda gave us a nice kind of blue-green aqua color. Now we have vinegar. Do you think vinegar is acidic or basic? Have you guys ever eaten salt and vinegar chips? They're kind of sour, right? So it's probably going to be an acid. Ooh, that one turns also a really bright pink color. And now we have soapy water. Do you guys think that soap is more acidic or more basic? Think it's going to turn a bright pink or more of a dark blue? It actually turned a little bit lighter than the regular control cup, so that indicates that it is a little bit more acidic. So now we can see So you guys can do this at home, again with permission, and we can see all the different pH scales that the cabbage juice indicator can show us, which I think is really fun. So now we're going to do another ocean acidification experiment. For this one, you guys need, well, we'll come back and talk about it. So for this next experiment, you're going to need vinegar, 2 cups, either chalk or an egg or just an eggshell, and a Sharpie to label, and also some water. And what we're going to do is we're going to label our cups, or if you're using glass, you can just put a piece of paper underneath like we did last time. So one, I'm going to label water, and the other one, I'm going to label vinegar. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what happens to those shells when they're in the ocean, when there's too much acid in the water. So vinegar we saw was acidic when we just did our cabbage juice indicator. So I'm going to put some vinegar inside the cup that is labeled vinegar. And then I'm going to just put regular water in the cup labeled water. And like I said, if you don't have eggs, you can just use chalk too. And what we're going to do is we're going to put 1 piece of chalk. So chalk is made up of similar, it's a similar compound to what shells are made out of. So what happens to the chalk is similar to what happens to the shells. So we'll put our paper behind so we can see a little bit better. And we're going to drop 1 chalk into vinegar, 1 chalk into water, and we are going to watch the reaction of both. And so we can see that the chalk inside the vinegar, oh, I don't know if you guys can see it or not, but it's starting to produce bubbles. It's starting to disintegrate quicker. There's starting to be some chalk residue on the bottom of the cup already. The one in the water, it's still releasing bubbles, but not as much. So this is where you guys are going to record your observations. And just watch it and let it sit for a little bit, maybe a day or 2, and come back and keep checking on it to see what is happening to the chalk in the cup with the vinegar and the chalk in the cup with the water. You can also use a piece of eggshell or a whole egg, like I said also. So we are going to come back to this one last time, so hopefully you guys can see the color changes a little bit better with this lighting now. The control cup over here is darker than the cup that had the carbon dioxide we created in the atmosphere, and darker than the cup that we blew directly carbon dioxide into by blowing through a straw. So today we talked a lot about ocean acidification and the chemistry that happens when we have too much carbon dioxide in our atmosphere, and about 30% of that is getting taken up by our ocean water, and in return that chemical reaction is causing too much hydrogen ions in the water, creating less calcium carbonate for shellfish to grow their shells nice and strong, and in return giving salmon less food to eat or not as many resources, and also damaging their ability to sense predators and affecting their sense of smell. And I know it sounds again like a lot of doom and gloom and not good things, but we're lucky that those reactions are not a one-way street, that they can be reversed. So if we have less carbon dioxide in our air, the ocean will in return have to take up less because there's not going to be as much. So if we can do things to help lessen those carbon emissions, it's very similar to the things we talked about last week on kind of helping with the decrease of water pollution from runoff. It's going to be some of those same things we can already do. So again, if it's doing more by using things more than once, recycling things so they're being reused again, or doing less. So maybe walking instead of driving our car so we can drive less, or taking public transportation instead of individual transportation, or just anything we can do to kind of lessen some of those emissions as well. Thank you guys for sticking it out another week, and a huge thanks to NOAA BWET Grant for helping support our salmon series, and I look forward to seeing you all next week.